Today we want to show you how to work the inserted collar of our bestseller 69-4. You'll probably use a knit fleece fabrics such as Mouflon, merino fleece, or something else. However, we are using for this tutorial cotton in white in order for you to see numbers and stitching lines better. First, it really is important to copy all markings of the sewing pattern onto your pieces, as this will be important when assembling. We are showing you how to work the front and back piece, as well as the inserted collar pieces, cut out according to your sewing pattern and size reference. Place the edges of the collar pieces together, matching the center back markings. Sew left on right with knit fabrics. Sew together using a stretch or zigzag stitch. Trim the seam allowances close to the edge. Here is one instance where you, of course, wouldn't sew left on right with a cotton fabric, but you can do with a knit fleece. Also mark your center front at the bottom of your collar pieces. It is notched 2 on your sewing pattern. At the outer edges of your collar piece, fold the seam allowance twice to create a roll hem. Press. Stitch invisibly by hand. Place the 2 collar pieces on top of each other along the bottom edges, making sure to align the front center markings at notch number 2. Those have to be aligned on top of each other. Sew together. Pin the collar to the left edge of the front bodice, right sides facing, seam number 1 and number 6, sewing from seam number 6 to number 1. Now comes an integral part. The seam allowances of the sweater front and the collar pieces are different. The front piece has 1 centimeter, the underlap of the collar piece is 2 centimeters in seam allowance. This is why when sewing the next seam, the edges will not lay on top of each other. Be careful to only sew to point 1 excluding the seam allowance. This is where Evie is pointing to here. Now sew the first stitching line. Cut diagonally at seam number 1 in the front panel on the left and right, as indicated by the pattern markings. Attach the collar, right sides together, sewing from seam number 1 on the left to seam number 1 on the right, meeting at the front center marking. You'll again have the situation that your underlap of the collar is wider than the seam allowance of your front piece, as indicated with the ruler here. Now sew the right sides together from seam number 1 to seam number 6. This is what the inside of your collar will look like right now. Now turn around and top stitch the base of the collar as indicated. See the stitching lines in the sewing pattern. This is about 1 centimeter along the collar insert. And now you know why we've extended the seam allowance of the underlap, as you are using that for your top stitching to secure everything on the inside without being it too bulky with 3 layers of fabric and knit. Cut diagonally at seam number 4 on the collar panel as indicated on the pattern. Sew the shoulder seams, as in sewing right sides together the back piece on the shoulder seam of your front piece ending in the seam number 4. Sew the collar to the neckline, stitching from seam number 4 on the left over to seam number 5. Center back, then continue along to seam number 4 on the right. That is basically the last hole that is left on your upper collar. And that's it. This is how your sweater should look like now. Continue with sewing on the sleeves and hem. It's not a very long way to go now.